Assalamualaikum. We are Group 4 for mini project Occupation Safety and Health Implementation at Industry. We are choosing Macron Steel CRC as our industry site visit for this mini project group. Introduction. Macron Steel CRC Sdn Berhad are the own subsidiary of Macron Steel Berhad made in 6 January 1989. It is a company of cold rolling mill factory and supplying to auto part industry, the manufacturing, galvanic and roofing industry, and lot more. For objective, to study the reasoning informing by intellectual knowledge to access inside industrial company according a professional engineering practice, and also to communicate effectively on complex engineering activity during the industrial visit as report, documentation, and presentation. For our team member distribution board, we have myself presenting introduction, discussion, and conclusion, Muhammad Syahmi for part A, Muhammad Nur Hakim for part B, Muhammad ZAKI for part C, and Muhammad WAFIQ for part D. Company background. CRC for the company's name stand for Cold Roll Coil. Is it located in section 16 Shah Alam Selangor, and we are already site visit the company on 6 January ago.
As the manufacturer of cold rolled coil, Micron Steel CRC Sdn Berhad bound with the Act and Regulation of the Factories and Machinery Act FMA 1967 and also OSHA 1994. The company safety and health policy should also include detailed action plans and the tools needed to implement them. Additional tools may include personal protective equipment (PPE), safety procedure checklist, and emergency response system, and required safety training, depending on the company. The sole purpose of the OSHA Act is to provide and promote occupational safety and health for both employers and employees. Next, to maintain safety, health, and welfare of employers and employees. For existing facilities relevant to prevent hazard, this factory provides pedestrian path for safety purpose. For the green path, it indicates the safe path in the factory. Yellow tape is the ones for workers not to cross the line without any precaution. Red flag area section indicates that area is high exposure to hazard in that section. Safety sign must well displayed at viewable area. The safety sign alert the people at the potential hazard area to become more careful. 8. Using clear pictographic along with clear text cues and color-coded to identify at a glance. Red signage indicates prohibitions. Blue stands for instruction that must be followed. Yellow for danger and green for instruction. Company or factory must comply with rules and regulations. The employees must designate certain parts of the workplace with well-ventilated or open area. The smoking area prohibited within certain distance of buildings, entrance, exits, and ventilation system intake. Micron Steel Sdn Berhad designated the smoking area at open and ventilated area, which are at side and in front office with a signage smoke-free area. For safety equipment and personal protective equipment, designated to protect from health and safety hazard. Safety helmet to protect the head from flying objects or other things that would strike or pierce it. Wear respiratory protection such as face mask to protect from harmful pesticide, fumes, and other toxic materials. Wear gloves when deals with hot, chemical, electricity, or slippery in order to avoid hazard from direct contact. Earmuff attenuate high frequency and earplug attenuate low frequency sounds to prevent hearing damage. It is vital for preventive measure from machine breakdown in order to prevent production time shortage. Minor maintenance avoid from major failures happen. For instance, minor maintenance conducted 4 times a year. Major maintenance normally performed twice or once a year include replacement of the machine parts that are identified necessary. The maintenance program is to prevent damage to the machine during operation. For communication tools, the company provides telephone for each workstation. Safety checklists by conducting the safety monitoring gradually from time to time that made by the company.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Now we'll continue with part B, which is hazard. Hazard is a source of situation with the potential for harm in terms of human injury or illness, damage to the property and the environment, or a combination of both. Workplace hazard include mechanical hazard, chemical substances, noise, as well as non-physical hazards such as stress and violence. Manufacturing companies such as Micron Steel uses many equipment and heavy machineries for their production of the product. The mechanical hazards come from the use of heavy machinery and also the equipment such as rollers, presses, overhead crane, and others. The workers working in this environment are at risk of being stuck or crushed by the heavy machinery or the moving parts of the machine. Machinery becomes hazardous when it is being handled by an incompetent person or the machine itself is not well maintained. Now let's talk about the chemical hazards. Micron Steel uses many types of chemical substances for their manufacturing process, such as lubricants and oils. These chemical substances are usually toxic chemicals that can harm and infect the body by various means. For example, by the respiratory tract, which is by when a worker accidentally inhale the fume produced by the toxic chemical. Other than that, by skin exposure, when the chemicals spill on the skin, and also by an open wound. This toxic chemical can cause long-term health complication or chronic illness such as cancer or lung diseases. Chemical exposures are typically hard to detect because some of them produces colorless and odorless fumes. Heavy machinery and equipment such as presses, rollers, and also the overhead crane in the manufacturing factory produces loud noises. Exposure to loud noises produced by the equipment over a long period of time can lead to hearing impairment and also hearing loss. According to the Noise Exposure Regulation 1989, the permissible exposure limit PEL is 90 decibel for 8 hours day exposure. Other than that, the sound must not exceed 115 decibel at any time, and also it must not exceed 140 decibel impulsive at peak level. The use of earmuff and earplugs can protect and prevent ourselves from the high level of noise exposure. Next, we move on to the ergonomic hazard. Ergonomic hazard can happen in any type of workplace. An example of ergonomic hazard is when a worker is performing repetitive tasks over and over again for a long period of time. Another example of ergonomic hazard is when a worker is adapting an uncomfortable and awkward postures and position when working at their workstation. This hazard can increase the risk of worker contracting the musculoskeletal disorder or MSD.
Hi, my name is Muhammad ZUNAIDI. I will talk about an accident emergency procedure. An emergency procedure is a documented set of instruction that specify what workers and visitors to your businesses should do in an event of emergency. An emergency plan encourages safety and demonstrates the company's commitment to employee safety. A lack of emergency plan can lead to a massive losses, such as several fatalities and a company financial collapse. Because an emergency will occur, planning is crucial. These are the emergency measures in the place for 5 potential crises in this Micron Steel. Firstly is the situation of emergency evacuation procedure. What we need to do is to sound the alarm if needed. Then leave the building via the emergency exit sign and call 911 immediately. After that, make sure all the staff left the building. Use the stair instead of the lift and assemble the staff in a circulated area identified on evacuation maps. If confronted with the smoke, keep your head down, and before opening closed door, please check that if it's hot or not, and stay away from the building until it's safe to return. The pictures below will show the maps of the evacuation route and assemble point. following incidents involve mild injuries, what we need to do is wash the wounded area and apply pressure to the wound with a clean cloth to stop the bleeding during the accident. After cleansing the wound with the water, please use antibiotic or petroleum jelly to disinfect infect the wound. Then rub and with a gauze or bandage around the wound. Reapply the bandage on the regular basis to avoid infection. After that, if your vaccination is not up to date, or if the wound become infected underneath the dressing, please get injection of tetanus injection. Then seek an urgent of emergency care if wounded worse over time. Lastly, please fill out the injury form for the future reference. In terms of the severe injuries, what we must do is immediately report the significant injuries and all fatalities to a superior or management. Give the first assistance and call 911. After that, you can assure the evidence is stolen or changed by shutting down the location, and do not charge to the scene unless absolutely necessary. After that, make a report of the accident or death. Finally, use the employment contract with a microsteel to apply a compensation and insurance coverage. The next situation is due to a chemical hazard injuries. The procedure is to remove a person from exposure if you can safely do so. Avoid the breathing of a vapor of a spilled substance, then alert the people in the immediate area to evacuate. If the medical assistance is needed, please call 911 immediately and request an emergency and medical responder. Please use eye wash or safety shower in a safe area away from the spill to rinse the chemical off the contaminant person. After that, obtain a medical evaluation and necessary treatment if needed. Please report the accident to the emergency room, and finally, please fill the incident form for the record. Last situation is based on ergonomic injuries. Firstly, help the injured worker to get into as comfortable a position as possible to relieve the pain. After that, inform the person in charge and determine the severity of the injuries and get the medical help if needed. Please provide the first aid for the injuries that are not serious and give the worker time to rest. Lastly, report the accidents and fill in the accident form. That's all for the procedure of the emergency situation that have a high possibility to occur at microsteel. Now I will go over a procedure for making a compensation claim. First and foremost, notify the insurance company. Then file a police complaint about the terrible accident and notify the employment office. Next, when contacted the insurance company, cooperate with the claim adjuster and ensure to provide all relevant evidence for the claim. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad IQRAM bin ZULFIKRY. I will be continuing the presentation for Part D, design the OSH management system for daily and routine enforcement at site. Before beginning work on industry site, work teams must have a daily safety briefing. The goal is to raise everyone's awareness of current hazard, ensure that risks are managed effectively, and ensure that the necessary preparation have been completed before work begin. There may be multiple working team at workplace, and each team is required to conduct a daily safety briefing. Next is 5S program. Although the 5S program was initially created for the automotive industry, it is now widely regarded as a crucial component of every lean manufacturing program, regardless of the sector. The benefit of incorporating 5S into your company's everyday operation go far beyond better organization, ongoing cleaning schedule, and effective activity flow. The 5S program come by sort, strengthen, standardize, sustain, and shine. Next, we move to safety awareness and training program. The first one is 5S training program. To help the workers or employee better grasp the 5S system, the organization needs to set up a training program. This instruction can teach participants how to uphold workplace discipline. This course can provide a practical understanding of how the 5S system can be implemented in any firm in order to increase workplace comfort. For the next training program is fire drill. A fire drill is a way to stimulate how to evacuate building in the event of a fire or other emergency. Most of the time, the building existing fire alarm system is triggered, and the nearest accessible escape is used to evacuate the structure. Depending on the type of building, different fire drill protocol may be used where inhabitants may be relocated inside the structure rather than evacuated. By practicing and training, person who may be in risk are expected to behave calmly and orderly during the fire drill. Next, we move on to safety procedure. The first safety procedure is standard operating procedure (SOP). Standard operating procedure is referred to as a SOP. SOPs are more than just a list of documented procedure. An organizer personnel are given step-by-step instruction. In a standard operating procedure, SOP document on how to carry out complex repeated tasks. Consider it a guide or for how to do a task. SOPs are created for the group of individuals who will carry out the task. Without rule, each person might carry out the task in a unique manner. Next, for safety procedure is safe work procedure. A safe work procedure (SWP) outlines a task safe execution step by step. It is necessary to do a risk assessment before writing a safe work procedure. Individual must be trained in the technique after it has been written, and the training must be documented. SWP display or challenge the risk, hazard, and other pertinent measure that must be put in the place in order to guarantee that the activity is performed with the lowest possible risk of injury. Next, we will move on to warning and emergency system. For the first one is personal protective equipment, or is known as PPE. It's a clothing worn to reduce exposure to risk that might result in significant workplace disease and injuries. Contact with chemical, radioactive, physical, electrical, mechanical, or other job hazard may cause uh, these wounds and illness. Item like glove, safety goggle, shoes, earplugs, or hard hats, respirators or coverall, vests, and full body suit are example of PPE. Next is machine safety device. Many people who depend on using machinery for their employment or hobby face a genuine daily threat for machine hazard. By using the most popular machine safety measure in combination, this hazard can be effectively addressed. The most common location for mechanical risk on machine are the place of operation, the power transfer, and other movement there. Therefore, it only makes sense that these common machine safety devices are made expressly to reduce danger at this key location. Next, we will move on to warning and emergency sign. These are some example of the emergency sign. The first one is biological hazard sign, used to identify object, tools, equipment, container, and others that could potentially be contaminated with viable hazardous agents, which represent at risk or prospective risk to a person's health, used to indicate either the actual or possible presence of biohazard. Lastly, we have fire safety signs. The placement of emergency supplies like fire extinguisher is frequently marked with industrial safety sign. In order to make access to life-saving instrument during an emergency more convenient, these signs don't include instruction for using safety equipment. Instead, they merely indicate where emergency equipment is located. And that's all from me. Thank you.
The discussion we made about safety and health for the company, firstly, they need to have a monthly medical checkup because the worker need to be checked functioning of heart, lungs, digestive system, kidney, liver, and the immune system after long exposure with hazard. Second, they need to have a properties inspection Properties like apart fence and beds are having loose nut and danger to the worker, and they need to report any kind of broken or equipment item for their safety. For conclusion, the safety and health of the worker inside the company need to maintain as all responsibility together. It is an individual job to choose one to be careful or not. The company, as they are already following the OSHA 1984 requirement and attach all the safety sign. The company also has a safety training, maintenance plan, communication tool, and protection checklist. So no excuse for them to not careful.